Hi, I'm Alan. 2 years ago I did a full kit review after I walked the GR10 across the Pyrenees. 2 years on, obviously I've changed a few things, and I've just finished off a Cambrian way walk, Gower to Conwy. So we'll do a quick run through of the kit that I've changed. First of all, my sleeping bag. I had a Marmot Hydrogen. Superb bag, loved it to bits, very comfortable, nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But then I found out that Cumulus did a bag which is lighter and would give me a similar spec, and so I decided to buy one. It's the Cumulus X Light. It's the lightest in their range. It's based on an X-Lite 300, and Cumulus allow you to do a customization of the bag that you order. And so I ordered it with the hydrophobic down, a Pertex outer instead of this lighter green stuff on the outer, which is softer and less resilient and not so windproof and waterproof as this stuff is, the Pertex. And I also went for a full zip using a 5mm zip, not the 3mm zip. And the reason I did that was because so many reviews said that the 3mm zip kept catching this material, this lighter material, and tearing it. Well, when you look at the 5mm zip, it's a very big toggle on it, and it doesn't jam the material in because it's got plenty of space around it. So if you feel it jam, you just unzip and really start again, and it's fine. And I found this bag really warm, and with the full zip, if it's a warm night, I just kind of throw it over me like a quilt with the zip down, and it's got a little foot box at the bottom. If you want to sit in it, sleep in it as a bag, you can have it zipped up, and it's got a zip at the bottom that you can lift up to get your feet cooler if you want to, or you can just use the foot box to hold the quilt over you and just throw the rest over you, and that's what I do mostly. The only thing I will say that's not so good on the Cumulus, that is brilliant on the Marmot Hydrogen, is the hood is a bit skimpy on this. I'm not impressed with the hood really, it's not big enough, but anyway, I put up with that, and when I'm sleeping I tend to just wear a beanie, or I can wrap up with this and close the hood right round me if it's really cold. But it's a 900 fill power material, and it does loft very well, so it's good stuff. But the main thing is it's 200 grams lighter than the Marmot Hydrogen. Very nice bag, very comfortable. Next up, not in any particular order, the thing I'm sitting on is this. Now, you may realise that I like something to sit on. I've said this before in my reviews when I'm camping. And I've changed from the Robin's tripod, which is 265 grams, to this little Tito titanium stool, which you can find on Amazon, and it weighs 193 grams. It's quite small, quite low, just high enough to get your bum off the ground and feel reasonably comfortable, and to be honest, it's so light. I just love this to bits. It's so comfortable, and it's stable because it's kind of got a square bottom to it. Very good to use. So, recommended. That's one of my favourite changes of kit. What's next? My tent. I still use my Plexamid, Z-Pack Plexamid, for warmer weather, and if I'm going into climes like in Europe where it's going to be hot. And it's nice and airy, that tent. It's a single skin with a pole to support it, using a trekking pole. But I have had occasions where it's been windy, and particularly where I've been walking in Wales doing the Gower to Conwy, where I felt I needed something a bit warmer and a bit more wind resilient, and so I bought one of these. This is a Lightwave Sigma S10 tent. I've already done a full review of this on YouTube if you want to see it, and I've also done a test of it in the rain and to check the breathability of it. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on it, but the whole thing with poles and pegs when you buy it is about 1.1 kilos, whereas the Plexamid is about 500 grams, about half that. So, but this has its own poles, usual flexible poles, and it's semi-geodesic, so it's partly self-standing. Apart from the porch, you have to peg that out. So I actually use 6 pegs with it, all the 4 main corners, and the front and back, and for the porch and the back, and that's it. I carry it with the poles separate to the tent itself, because the poles can sit in the side pocket and be strapped down with the cinch straps down the side, and the tent itself, which I can just scrunch up, and it can sit on top of my food bag and everything inside and keep it insulated and warm, and it's the first thing I can pull out the bag to pitch. So that stays like that. And with it, the pegs that they give you with it are aluminium pegs, not unlike the mini groundhogs, but they're kind of a different section, square section, instead of that Y section. And I wasn't that keen on them, but they're not very light, nor are the mini groundhogs, depending on your point of view. But what I have been trying, and I've used throughout this Gower to Conwy trip, is these. It's a 90mm peg, which you might think, oh, that's too short, that's not going to be any good. But these are made out of plastic, and instead of weighing 10 grams each, like the normal mini groundhogs and similar, they're actually 3.2 grams each, and they are very tenacious when you use them. They wouldn't be very good in sand. In sand you probably need just as long a peg as you can get, but these are 90mm, as I say, whereas the normal mini groundhogs I think are 150. But what makes these different is they're a cross section, and they have these barbs on them. And if you've got grass, anything with roots, heather, grass, blueberry bushes, I was using these in all kinds of terrain, and they work really well, and they're not coming out anytime soon, I can tell you, even when the wind's blowing. So you push them in right down to the ground like that, and to be honest, you can just pull it up from the guy rope, because the head of it has got these kind of slots on it which grips on the guy line, so the guy line's not going to fall off the top. They're really good. So I'm impressed with these. The only time that they have been a bit of a problem is if the ground is really hard. One time I camped on a campsite and the ground was really dry and hard, and these don't go in so well as, say, a metal peg would with a sharp point on it. They're not terribly sharp on the point. But other than that, they've been brilliant. They do bend, they don't snap, but they can bend if you've got really hard ground, and you don't, or if you don't put the pressure on straight, then they can bend, but you can bend them straight again. They will be slightly weakened, but they don't actually snap in my experience, so they're really good, and that saves on a normal tent, you know, around 60 grams, 100 grams, something like that, depending on what pegs you use. So I love those, they're really good. That's what I shall be using from now on. I've used them on the Plexmid and on the Lightwave, and they've been very good. Right, what's next? Boots. I've used the Salomon Prime GTX mids, and I found them to be very good. But I thought, well, I wonder if there's something that's any better out there. I do have a couple of issues with the Prime GTX. One is that they have lugs which stick out on the side, and you can kind of catch the laces of one on the lug of the other and trip over them because of the way they're mounted. But also the cuff comes a fair way up the ankle and is a fairly hard cuff, so if you tighten it up, then you can end up with a little bit of bruising around above the ankle. That's what I've found, and it takes about a week for it to harden up and get used to that. But most of the time I end up not doing the upper lugs up so tight so that I've got a bit of space, but that then allows grass seed to get in. So what I've been doing is a bit of research as to what other boots I could get, and Salomon actually brought out a different boot. The X Ultra 4 is what I've been using, and I like. Again, it's a mid-type boot. It's got a softer cuff on it, it's not quite so high. It's got a bit more spacing here and a bit more bendy at the back, so I don't suffer that problem with the bruising around the back of my leg. The lugs don't stick out so much, and when I tighten it up, this cuff I can pull in nice and tight around my ankle so it's a better seal, and it gives nice support to the ankle, enough support to the ankle. These are 200 grams lighter than the Prime GTX. They're 430 grams each for a size 10 this is, and they do up well. The grip on the sole is phenomenal. It's the Prime GTX aren't bad, they're pretty good, they're on a par with Vibram I would say, but these are really good, especially going downhill on slippy kind of terrain. I mean, if you're on moss and weed and stuff like that, nothing's going to grip, but anything that you can grip to, these will grip, and they've been really good going over the mountains of Wales. They're more flexible than the GTX Prime, and I suppose they're nearer to partway between a traditional walking boot and a running shoe. So if that's what you want, a bit more support and still to have the flexibility of a running shoe, they're a brilliant compromise and saves a lot of weight on a standard boot. I mean, the GTX Primes, as I say, they're 600 grams each, and they are still quite good and grippy, but a leather boot will weigh about 1 kilo each generally. So that's the boots, very good. Towel, as I said, not in any particular order of priority. That's my new towel. The last time I did a review, the towel I had weighed 100 grams, and I found you wash yourself in it once and it was smelly, and I found that I could never wash that smell out. I couldn't get rid of it on the trail, and it needed a proper washing machine wash to get the smell out. So I've changed to this, which is a Tito Summit Airlight towel. It weighs 50 grams, and you think, no, well, that's not going to dry you very well, is it? But this is the large size at 50 grams, and it fits in this tiny little pouch, and yet it's this big. I can show you the whole thing with the wind stopped blowing. There you go. I can just about tie that round my waist. I'm not very wide, but so it's a proper size towel, and it dries me as well as any towel that I've used. It really does absorb, and then it dries quickly and doesn't seem to smell either. It's a pretty good towel. Impressed with that. So that's a good bit of kit. Hat that I'm wearing. I've had various hats. I think the last one I had was a Trekmate's hat, weighed about 90 grams. This one is an Outdoor Research Helium hat. It's got a nice brim on it. It looks quite smart, and it seems to hold its shape, the brim. It's quite a wide brim and gives good protection from the sun. It's got an adjustable back on it, it's got a little wind thing, and it's got a fairly breathable top on it, quite thin, keeps the sun off, and I find that really comfortable. Really blessed with that hat, and it weighs 70 grams, so it's another weight saving. On the subject, going back to towels a minute, you may remember I had a microfiber little towel that I used for wiping down the tent and washing me or whatever I wanted to do as a general sort of washing thing more than anything. And it was just a cheap thing I'd got from a supermarket. Well, I've now got this, which is, sorry, I'll have to read it. Oh, it's the Gram Counter Gear, one of their small hand towel things, and I think I got it as a special offer for $3.50 or something. You might have to pay a bit more, but I find that lighter and more absorbent than the sort of supermarket microfiber towel, so that's really good. Solar panel, right. I had a Renergie 5-watt solar panel, and yeah, it was alright when I first got it, and I used it on the Beacons Way and it was fine. But then I went to the Pyrenees, had a bit of a heat wave, and the damn thing just gave up on me because there's too much sun on a solar panel. So since then I've changed and I've bought this. This is just one that I thought I'd take a chance on. It's on Amazon. It's made by a company called Alftec, and it's lighter. It weighs 100 grams, that panel. They call it a 10-watt panel. I'd say it's a 5-watt panel, because it delivers a full 1 amp charging rate when there's full sun like I've got at the moment. So that's that's good enough, I find, to give me, if it's actually pointed properly to the sun, and that'll charge my 6,300 milliampere hour battery pack fully in a day, and that gives me 2 full phone charges. But this one is also water resistant. It's got a water resistant coating around here, but I can't imagine it's water resistant in the actual connector, but they say it is. And I've just attached bits of elastic and string so I can actually attach it to my bag, and it's very, very light, 100 grams, and it's quite flexible too. So it's not easily going to get snapped, I hope. Sleeping mat. Sleeping mat, I've been using an X-Bed sleeping mat, which is about 360 grams, I think it is. I can't remember the model of it offhand, but it's a very nice mat. No complaints about it at all. But I've gone back to one that I had before, which is the Neoair X Light Therm-A-Rest, and the only reason I've gone back to it is simply this: it's just got a wider top to it. Whereas the X-Bed kind of went to a tapered top like that, and I kept finding that my pillow would sort of slip off at the top end, whereas this being a bit wider just gives a bit more support for that. It's also got more insulation in it, so if the ground is cold, and I have used this on cold ground, it gives more insulation. It's a factor 4 instead of a factor 1.5 or something for the other one. The only thing I don't like about this particular one is it's the older version. So it's got the old blow-in screw nozzle, and I just find that's a bit more of a faff than the X-Bed style 2-valve plug type arrangement. But I know that they've now updated this to have that same system, that plug system. So if you get a new one, that's what you'll probably get. Right, next of all comes my wind jacket. I've been using a Rab Borealis jacket, which I like very much. It's a nice jacket. It's got nice long sleeves, so you can put it over your hand, wear them like a kind of glove, and it's got 2 really nice pockets down the chest. But I don't find I have to wear it a terrible amount of times. So it's only when it's particularly windy or a bit chilly in the evenings, but I could wear other things. I decided to change to this. And this is a Montaigne Airlight jacket. Folds into its own top pocket. The only pocket you've got on it is the top pocket. And the main benefit of changing to this is that this weighs 110 grams, whereas the Rab Borealis weighs 299 grams. So it's quite a difference in weight. It's not quite such a nice jacket, I would say, but it's 200 grams saving is worth it from my point of view for the amount I actually wear it and use it. I changed my cooking system windshield to from one of those titanium ones that you can buy on Amazon to aluminium. I bought a turkey roasting tray and cut it so that I could actually make just a foil windshield out of it, and I wrapped that around my 2 containers that I use for tea and coffee, and it keeps it all together nicely. It doesn't rattle like the titanium. It doesn't have to be wrapped in a separate bag because it kind of looks after itself, whereas the titanium does need rolling up. But the thing I really didn't like about the titanium is it would blow about a bit when it was in use, and also it would rattle like hell when you're trying to get it out. So if you're in a campsite getting up early, you're making a hell of a lot of noise waking up all your fellow campers, and it's a bit embarrassing. So this is the aluminium windshield that I made out of a turkey roasting tray, and I just use it wrapped around store it wrapped around my coffee and tea pots, just the 2 tablet containers, and it's ready to use straight away. Works very well, freestanding, can shape it easily. The alternative that I was using before is the titanium windshield. That's this. Very noisy thing, comes in a little bag, and you need to put it in the bag because it's got sharpish edges, and when you try to use it, like that and wraps around your cooker. It has a little magnet to seal it, but it's a bit too springy and not very nice to use. So that's why I changed to the aluminium. Also, that with its bag weighs 22 grams and that weighs 15. And the other difference is that I think was about 15 pounds and that was about 3. Almost last. Camera. I used a Lumix Tz100 when I was doing the Pyrenees, and I wasn't that impressed with the results because the lens can be a bit soft, especially if you zoom in, and there were a few other little quirks about it, but the colour balance and so on weren't quite so good. It just wasn't so sharp. I'd previously had an RX100 Sony, and then I found that you could get that they'd updated the Sony to Mark 6 and Mark 7s, and I decided to get a Mark 6. It's got a 1-inch sensor, which is the same size as the Lumix, but the difference is that this has got a lens that's really sharp and a sensor that's really sharp, and the results are stunning. It's a superb little camera, weighs about the same, it's slightly smaller, and it also has a fairly flexible kind of display that you can view things from all angles. I'm sure there's other reviews on it that are much better than I'm going to do, but it's a very nice camera, and it does need to have the optional extra of the little finger grip, I find, but it's lovely. It's slightly less zoom than the Lumix. This is a ×8 and that's a ×10, but I don't notice that difference, and I can still zoom in digitally on this and get a better result than I would have done just optically with the Lumix. So that was a really good buy. It's quite an expensive camera. It's about twice the price of the Lumix, but it's worth every penny in my book, because I like when I'm taking pictures, because I take so many, to get a good result. I was using this for the video, and the video is quite good, but the noise reduction, there isn't any, and it was suffering a bit, and the two microphones are on the top here, so it's quite difficult to muffle them. And on the Mark 6 there is no external microphone socket on it. If you get the Mark 7, it's got an external microphone socket, so you can use an external mic if you do use that. I find that's just another bit of faff that I can't be bothered with, but I do use still the video on this a little bit, but it doesn't give you the wide angle and the flexibility that you get with something like this. This is, I did try a GoPro, and personally I didn't like GoPros. I found the menu system a little bit sort of clumsy and awkward to use and find your way around. This is the Dji Osmo Action. It works very well. Gives very good results, I find. There's lots of YouTube videos about it, and I've done one as well. I've done a review of it showing all the different features that it comes with and how well it works. And that's what I took with me to Wales. I bought a GoPro Shorty with it to go with it, which is a hand-holding thing and a sort of slightly selfie stick and tripod base, which is a good idea on the face of it, but I think the GoPro Shorty implementation is naff. It fell to bits when I first bought it, and you'll see that if you look at my review. That wasn't very good. But the Dji Osmo Action I've been using for my video on the Wales trip, or the second half of it anyway, and yeah, I'm quite pleased with it. I've still got to learn how to use it properly and better, I think, but it's pretty good. You can have an external mic, which I haven't actually been using much. I've just been playing with it a little bit, but that's where you're charging and your micro SD card go in, and there's a little flap that normally covers that when the camera is out of its holding case. I've removed that so that I can actually plug in more easily when I want to for the external microphone, and I've made a little foam plug which goes in here so that any incidental water, rain, that kind of thing doesn't get in there. It just gives it a little bit of initial waterproofing, but it's not going to be as waterproof as the proper flap, of course, because it is a waterproof camera normally. And you can use this for stills and video. I set it to 180p 30, which uses a lot less frames and a lot less memory than obviously the faster modes, and I found that to give quite adequate results. Some people use it on 4K. If you've got something where you can see the difference, then fine, but most of the time I don't think it's that noticeable, depending on what medium you're going to be viewing it on. So far I'm pleased with that. I'm going to look at an alternative for the tripod system that's holding it. And that weighs, that's an extra 200 and a bit grams, so it's a bit more weight to carry. But I think I've saved that just on the sleeping bag, and then there's more that I've saved. There's another 200 grams I've saved on the boots, 200 grams on the coat. So altogether I'm still grams in, if you like. One final thing that I had with me in the Pyrenees was I actually made a little travel bag, or a big travel bag, out of a bin bag type arrangement that I could put around my rucksack for flying on the airplane. But I picked up a tip from somewhere that if you want to travel on the plane, the best thing to do is cling film your bag before you go. Unwrap it when you get there, and obviously you throw the cling film away. It doesn't seem very green, I know, but it means that you don't have to carry that bag with you then over the Pyrenees or wherever it is you're going, the PCT for example. And when you get towards the end of your trip, you go into a supermarket, buy another pack of cling film, and you can wrap your bag up before you come home. So that means you're carrying nothing. It's a much better way of doing it. So that's what I should do if and when I next go abroad for one of my walks. So that's it, that's all the kit I've upgraded. You can probably tot up how much weight I've saved, and you might want to look at my previous full review so that you can see what I said about the things I've changed from. Hope that's been useful. See you again hopefully. If you like this, found it useful, please click like and subscribe, and you'll see anything else that I do. Thanks very much. Bye bye.